Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Luckiest Peach podcast. I'm your host, Rachel, the Lucky Peach. I am currently stretching. Oh, this month, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't been behind on everything this month. I think I mentioned this last week. I have been struggling, or had been. I'm slowly working out of it. I had been struggling with probably the worst burnout of my entire life. And it wasn't even related to movies. I think, I started ADD medication, and then I'm going to work almost full time, and I'm going to school full time while also recording the podcast and doing other things, and then watching all these screeners for the Spirit Awards so I can vote. I'm doing fine handling it. I'm with the medication, I think I'm better at handling it than I would have been in the past, but I'm definitely had some serious burnout, and the podcast was the main thing that took the fall during that, which honestly it shouldn't have been. It should have been something less important. But regardless, we are catching up. Primarily, I need to apologize to the patrons for the fact that I've fallen behind. But as far as I know, my patrons are my friends, and they already knew what was going on. But regardless, I still apologize. The patrons at patreon.com/luckypeach. I think that's the only real life update I have, other than a couple days ago, my brother got me really drunk and I spent $200 at Barnes & Noble. Apparently drunk Rachel is okay with paying full price for Criterions. So I will not be doing that ever again. It's fine. I'm not mad about it. Oh, what else? My tax return was very depressing. But last year a lot of shit happened. My old job, I was basically working 1 day a week due to depression. Could not get out of bed, so I called in a lot. And then basically I just gave a lot of shifts away, so I didn't work much. And then you guys know I was out of a job for almost 3 months. So my tax return was very depressing. But, compared to last year, I'm doing great. I've mostly figured out my mental illness, my brain, and I've gotten back in control of school. And I'm not in control of my life, but I'm trying, and I'm doing really well at work. I have a package out for delivery. I don't think my dad is home, but hopefully when this package gets delivered, we do not have an interruption. And hopefully it is not the same level of interruptions that we had last week. I am not in a mood like I was last week either. I was in a mood because of the burnout, so that's what was wrong with me. But I hope that was entertaining to you guys. Do not send me emails. Unsubscribe. Does anyone else actually take their time to unsubscribe from the spam emails? Because I do. Otherwise I get annoyed. I have to keep deleting them. Anyways, so the burnout is passing. Nothing, I don't know. Nothing interesting. I do not have the website done. I know I said I would have it done by the time this episode came out. I do not. Again, I apologize. I really let one of the most important things in my schedule fall behind. So I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to work on it the second I get time. I'm not going to make any promises like I have before. I'm just going to say I'll get it done soon. But I'm not going to tell you a date because I know for sure if I give myself a date, I'm not going to get it done by then. But regardless, the website is coming. The fact that I even sat down and was able to do it a couple weeks ago was a big deal. The stickers, of course, are available still. I have given some free ones out to my coworkers, but they are the only exception. into getting free ones because it's free advertising for me. One of them, I didn't expect it. She put it on her car right after I gave it to her. And I was like, you don't have to do that. She's like, no, I love it. It's like, all right, thank you, I guess. Anyways, yeah, I also, after the burnout ended, I also just had a mentally overwhelming and frustrating week. So I'm dealing with that. I will explain that later at the end of the episode, because if I do what I think I'm going to do, next week's episode is going to be different. But anyways, I'll get to that at the end of the episode. Just get straight to the review. So as I said before, there was nothing interesting that released theatrically, in my opinion, last month. And if there was something that released theatrically that I was interested in seeing, the release would have been so limited that I wouldn't have been able to see it, because a lot of those limited releases, for some reason, do not get released in Houston. They used to, back when a certain independent theater was still open, but almost exactly a year ago, it got shut down because the people who owned that shopping center were assholes and kept raising the rent and did not respect film. But a new realty place bought that area, and they're like, no, we're going to bring it back. We know how important this is, so it's going to open soon, thankfully. Hopefully that'll give me more, better access to films that get limited theatrical releases, because that'll definitely help out the podcast, for sure. So that being said, I wasn't able to see this film in theaters. It also only released theatrically. It released theatrically in December. It released on streaming in January. So I was like, I'll make an exception this one time. So this is the only exception. Today I'm reviewing The Tragedy of Macbeth. Woo! The movie itself, of course, is new. The story itself was written when? 1606. I don't know why I always think he was alive in the 1400s. He was not, clearly. But yeah, so Tragedy of Macbeth is a 2021 historical thriller film written and directed by Joel Coen. It's not written. Oh, the screenplay was written. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. The screenplay was written by Joel Coen, based on the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare. It is the first film directed by only one Coen brother without any involvement from the other. Now that I'm mentioning that, because Ethan Coen did do a review of Macbeth, and it was hilarious. We'll get to that later, though. Unless it's already on the Wikipedia, but I don't know. I'll find that out later. Yeah, so it's directed by Joel Coen, not directed by Ethan. I hate saying that name. Not because of Ethan Coen, for other reasons that are no longer important. Yeah, directed, written by Joel Coen, obviously based on the Shakespeare play, the Scottish play. Produced by Joel Coen, Francis McDormand, and Robert Graff. Cinematography by Bruno Delbano. Edited by Lucian Johnston and Reginald Janes. The music is by Carter Burwell. The production companies are A24, my faves, and IAC Films. It's distributed by A24 and Apple TV+. It had its New York Film Festival release on September 24th, 2021, and its limited theatrical release December 25th, 2021. The runtime is 105 minutes, and oh Jesus, well, limited release, obviously. The box office is going to be low. The box office so far, or as of now, is $472,332. Very nice. I mean, with the release that limited, there was one theater in my entire area that showed it, and it was Alamo Drafthouse. And the Alamo Drafthouse is too far, and I just didn't have time as well. So it's also more expensive, and I have AMC A-list, so I'm not gonna. It's rare that I'm willing to spend that much extra money. I will at like River Oaks Theater, the one I was mentioning earlier, because that's an independent theater. It's not really. Well, it was owned by Landmark Theaters, but that's not like the level of franchise that Alamo is. Anyways, regardless. Anyways, there's a picture of Joel Coen before. I've never seen a picture of him before. He looks like a non-piece of shit version of Howard Stern. Like if Howard Stern was a normal, decent human being and not one of the worst people to have a platform. So yeah, okay, this wasn't on the site. I don't know why. So it's streaming. It had its streaming release on Apple TV Plus on January 14th, 2022. It is an Apple TV Plus original. That's why A24 has like a 3-year deal with Apple TV, I think. It might be longer than that. I don't know. They have a really big deal with them. Their primary streaming deal is with Showtime, but their most recent deal is with Apple TV Plus. So, yeah, when I say Showtime, I mean all their other films go to Showtime, with the exception of a few, obviously. So yeah, the plot. I know this is a mostly well-known, everyone knows this story, but I'm gonna read the plot anyways, because I watched it right before I recorded, and like I know what happened, but I'm not gonna pretend to understand Shakespeare's dialect. So that makes it confusing. I mean, I also read it in high school, and I haven't been able to find this app since. I really enjoyed it. This British guy came to our high school, my senior year. He had made this app. He invented this app that basically made Shakespeare easy to read and understand. It had like the main, what would it be called? Text, prose? What is it called? The main play in the original, whatever form of English. What form of English was it? What form of English was it? Because it was not modern day English. Anyways, Shakespearean English, I guess. And then on the other side, it had it, I guess, translated into modern day English, so it's easier to understand. And then they had little videos on each page of actors in like just a room with like there was no set dressing. It was just the two actors, kind of like improv class, reading out the dialogue so that you can see the like body language of it and understand the context and the meaning behind each sentence or each line, which I really, really, really liked. We used that. I think we did Macbeth and Hamlet. I get them both mixed up because we read them back to back in high school, or not in high school, in my senior year of high school. I read those two back to back. So I know the difference, but I do get them mixed up because of that. But yeah, if I knew the name of that, if any of y'all are listening and y'all know what I'm talking about, tell me, because I really enjoyed it a lot. And the guy who made it, he was really nice. I liked him. I thought he was really cool. I'm not the biggest fan of Shakespeare, but someone who's passionate about making it easier to understand for the general public, I have so much respect for it. And the fact that he invented that app and the fact that I enjoyed that app made me more interested in Shakespeare, because I haven't been able to find it since. I don't really get involved in all that, And if anything, the only one that I really care the most about is Julius Caesar. Anyways, the plot. The plot of this film, I don't know. I'm sure he cut out some parts from the play. I don't know. I don't know the play that well. If you do, I'm sure you know whether or not he did. But but this is the plot for the film of the play, the screenplay, if you will. So, Macbeth and Banquo, having led King Duncan's army to victory over the traitorous Thane of Cawdor, are approached by 3 witches on the battlefield. The witches hail Macbeth will be made the Thane of Cawdor. He is already the Thane of Glamis. They proclaim that he shall be king hereafter, before stating that Banquo shall father a line of kings. King Duncan orders Thane of Ross to execute Cawdor and reinvest the title upon Macbeth. Oof. Macbeth becomes alarmed after Duncan names his son Malcolm as the Prince of Cumberland, seeing the appointment as an encumbrance in his path to the throne. Macbeth writes to Lady Macbeth, informing her of the prophecies. When Duncan decides to spend a night at Macbeth's castle, Lady Macbeth convinces her husband to commit regicide. She drugs the king's servants, and a hesitant Macbeth carries out the killing. Early the next morning, Macduff, the Thane of Fife, discovers the body while Macbeth murders the servants to tie up loose ends. Fearing for his own life, Duncan's heir, Malcolm, flees to England, and Macbeth assumes the throne as the new king. Uneasy over the prophecy concerning Banquo, Macbeth arranges to have him and his son Fleance murdered. Macbeth's assassins, accompanied by Ross as the 3rd murderer, kill Banquo. Ross then pursues Fleance through a field. An increasingly paranoid Macbeth becomes a feared tyrant. At a royal banquet, he hallucinates and begins raving at Banquo's ghost. Lady Macbeth has the guests dismissed before drugging him to calm him down. During his trance, Macbeth is again visited by the witches. They conjure a vision of Fleance, who tells him to beware of Macduff, that he shall be king until great Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill, and that he shall be harmed by no man born of a woman. All men are born of... Macbeth orders the whole Macduff household he put to death, but Macduff himself survives, having earlier fled to England. A guilt-ridden Lady Macbeth begins sleepwalking and gradually descends into madness. Ross secretly visits England and informs Macduff of his family's demise. A grief-stricken Macduff vows revenge, while Malcolm raises an army with English help. The troops cut down branches from Birnam Wood, using them as camouflage, and march on Macbeth's castle at Dunsinane, fulfilling one of the prophecies. Lady Macbeth dies, plunging Macbeth into further despair. Still convinced of his invincibility, he is ultimately challenged by Macduff to a duel. Macduff declares he is not born of a woman, but instead untimely ripped. Oh, C-section. That's what I was like. Born of a woman? C-section. Macbeth initially refuses, but ultimately accepts Macduff's challenge. Macduff bests Macbeth and beheads him, fulfilling the final prophecy. Malcolm is crowned the new king of Scotland. Meanwhile, Fleance is revealed to be alive, and Ross spirits him away from England. A flock of crows emerges in the foreground, clearing the path and to signal the fulfillment of the witch's prophecy regarding Banquo's progeny. I'm still a little confused. I need this further dumbed down. So he gets a prophecy that he's going to become king. Then his friend is going to give birth. He's going to sire a line of kings. So then Macbeth's friend kills this other guy, so that he can become the Thane of Cawdor. And then the king's son becomes prince. So he's like, oh no, he's got to be king. And he tells his wife. So then the king's like, I'm going to come spend the night. And his wife is to kill him. So it kills the king, regicide. She drugs his servants so that they don't see the killing. Then the next morning, his friend, Macduff. Oh, the king killed the prior Thane. Okay. Macduff. who is Macduff? He's another Thane. Okay. He finds the body, and Macbeth kills the king's servants to tie up the loose ends. Yeah. Malcolm, the king's son, flees because he's scared. So then Macbeth is like, I'm king now. Okay. So that prophecy comes true, and now he's concerned about the next one, where Banquo, his friend, or whoever, is gonna sire the kings. So he arranges for him and his son, Fleance is Banquo's son. Okay. He arranges for him and his son to get killed. So then Macbeth hires assassins. If you're watching on
some dark chocolate dust.
that was the least stressful interruption I've ever had. What is this? My dad just brought me a Valentine's Day gift. He said who it was from, but I didn't hear it. And I'm not going to ask if y'all heard who it was from because I was muted. Oh, Ferrero's. They gave me Ferrero Rochers and a Target gift card. How much is on it? Let's find out. This is where I'm like, y'all should go use those TikTok sounds that totally aren't chainmail. How much is it? Oh, nice. $50. Don't use those TikTok sounds. I mean, if they help you manifest, more power to you, but they are basically just chainmail. Or like those Facebook posts from like 2010 that were like, share this if you love Jesus, ignore if you love the devil. Which is that's mostly also just fear mongering. But I mean, if it helps you manifest things, go for it. But otherwise, like, there are better ways to manifest. Those are just chainmail. There's no way to put a spell on a sound like that so that it affects other people. It's not a thing. Anyways, back to this. Okay, so the assassin kills Banquo, and then he chases off his son, and it's just assumed that he's dead, I guess. So he gets paranoid. Macbeth starts becoming paranoid. He becomes a tyrant. When it says tyrant, I like low-key just pictured that I guess dream sequence in Grey Knight. Then he hallucinates. He sees a ghost. His wife drugs him and gets rid of the guests. He's visited by the witches. They give him a vision of the son. And they're like, he's gonna be king. And Great Burnham Wood comes to Dunsinane. Okay, Burnham Wood. Dunsinane is where he lives. He's not gonna be harmed if anyone born of a woman. And that means naturally, vaginally birthed. And then he orders the whole Macduff household to be murdered. Macduff survives because he fled already. Okay. His wife starts sleepwalking and she goes crazy. That's normal for Shakespeare. He always has at least some person go crazy. Psychotic, I guess. That's the main thing that gets me mixed up with Hamlet, because Hamlet has what's her name, Ophelia, and she goes crazy. That's why I got them mixed up. Aside from other things, because people get murdered and then ghosts and visions. They're not that different in my opinion. One of them's more just like domestic issues. This one is more just power issues. I mean, that one also is power, but it's mostly familial, Lion King. Anyways, life goes crazy. The assassin secretly goes to England and tells Macduff that they're going to get killed. Macduff says, I'm going to get revenge. And then his son, was it his son? Oh no, the king's son, Malcolm, gets an army together to cut down branches from Burnham wood. I'm guessing Burnham wood is a forest or a type of tree, something like that. They use those as camouflage, and then they go to Dunsinane. So it's, yes, that fulfills another prophecy. So his wife dies. He is even more depressed, but he still thinks he's invincible. So he challenges Macduff to a duel. Macduff is like, I'm not born naturally. My mom had a C-section. Untimely raped. A C-section. Okay, me too. Macbeth is like, no, I'm not gonna fight you. And he accepts. Or no, Macduff challenges him to a duel. And he's like, nah. And he's like, all right. Macduff kills him, fulfilling the final prophecy. Malcolm is the new king. Flance turns out to be alive. The assassin tells him to go away from Scotland, though. And then the flock of birds signal that the witch's prophecy was fulfilled. Okay, I needed to dumb it down for myself. I apologize if you understood the first part of that. I needed to make it dumber for myself. So the cast has Denzel Washington as Macbeth, probably the greatest actor of all time in my opinion. Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth. I think she's an okay actress. I kind of already know that the primary reason she's cast in this is because she's producing it and because she's married to Joel Coen. So, yeah, she's in like all of the Coen brothers films, just about almost all of them. Alex Hassel as Ross, he's the assassin guy. Bertie Carvel as Banquo. Who's Bertie Carvel? Oh, he's on Laurence Olivier Award. Oh. So, on West End? I don't know. Corey Hawkins as Macduff. Corey Hawkins, I also, what do I know him from? Oh, he's in Straight Outta Compton. But what else do I know him from? I don't know him from, I don't watch Walking Dead. Black Klansman. Yeah, I know him from that. Okay, but what is he in? Oh, In the Heights. That's what I know him from. That is the thing I know him from. Yes, okay. Harry Melling as Malcolm, just King Duncan's older son. Catherine Hunter plays all the witches. Who's Catherine Hunter? Oh, okay. Brendan Gleeson as King Duncan. He is the father of the Gleeson family of, Donald Gleeson and Brian Gleeson. Miles Anderson as Lennox. Matt Helm as Donalbain. Moses Ingram as Lady Macduff. Yes, I know her. She's in The Queen's Gambit. Scott Subiono and Brian Thompson as the murderers. Lucas Barker as Flance. Am I pronouncing that right? What are the phonetics? Flans. Yeah, okay. Stephen Root as the porter. Richard Short as Seward. Sean Patrick Thomas as Monteith. Ralph Ineson as the captain. Ralph Ineson is in this. Oh my god. Ralph Ineson is just slaying all these A24 movies. I love him. Yeah. That's the cast. So continuing on. It was announced in March 2019 that Joel Coen In a rare solo effort, was set to write and direct a new take on the William Shakespeare play. Scott Rudin was originally set to produce and A24 to distribute. Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand were set to star in the film. In November, Brendan Gleeson and Corey Hawkins entered negotiations to join the cast. Both were confirmed in January 2020, along with the addition of Moses Ingram, Harry Melling, and Ralph Ineson to the cast. As I was going through them, Harry Melling is Dudley Dursley. I don't know. I feel like because I was going through all of their names and like, who is this? And I didn't say that about Harry Melling. He's been in a lot in the last year, if y'all haven't noticed. I think he was in something else I reviewed earlier in the podcast. Anyways, filming began in Los Angeles with cinematographer Bruno Del Bono on February 7th, 2020, to give the film a look untethered from reality. It was shot entirely on sound stages. In April, Coen announced that the film would officially be titled The Tragedy of Macbeth. It was announced on March 26, 2020 that filming had been halted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Production resumed on July 23rd, 2020. And concluded on July 31st, 2020. The film was shot in black and white. In April 2021, Rudin stepped down as producer following allegations of abuse. Smart move. The film's score was composed by Carter Burwell, the Coen brothers' longtime collaborator. The score's ominous tone is punctuated by moments of solo violin described by Burwell as taking flight out of the darkness. Helping the composer to channel the idea of a folk-style sound from unknown lands was award-winning violinist Tim Fain. Regarding Joel directing alone without Ethan, Burwell stated Ethan didn't want to make movies anymore. He seems to be happy with what he's doing. With what he's just doing. They both have tons of unproduced scripts sitting on the shelves, but I don't know what Joel will do without him, end quote. The film was theatrically released by A24, followed by a global launch on Apple TV+. It had its world premiere at the 2021 New York Film Festival on September 24th, 2021. It was released in a limited release theatrically on December 25th, 2021, prior to streaming on Apple TV Plus on January 14th, 2022. It also closed the London Film Festival. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has 93%. With an average rating of 8.2 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, quote, led by stellar Denzel Washington, The Tragedy of Macbeth strips the classic story down to its visual and narrative essentials, end quote. Metacritic assigned the film of 87 out of 100, indicating universal acclaim. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian wrote, quote, the movie hits its stride immediately with a taut, athletic urgency, and it contains some superb images, particularly the eerie miracle of Birnam Wood coming to Dunsinane with Malcolm's soldiers holding tree branches over their heads in a restricted forest path and turning themselves into a spectacular river of bogs, end quote. Alison Wilmore of Vulture wrote, quote, while The Tragedy of Macbeth is Joel Coen's first solo directing effort, that aspect of their long collaboration remains steady. Macbeth becomes, like so many of the Coen's protagonists, a character trapped in his own fixations and failings. The concave world on screen, a reflection of the self he can't escape, end quote. Dave Calhoun of Time Out wrote that it was, quote, stage-bound in all the right ways, reminiscent of a much earlier cinema when filmmakers barely stepped outdoors and wielded magic with shadow and light on sound stages. It's short, sharp, and savage, end quote. Robbie Collin of the Daily Telegraph wrote that it, quote, has simmered its source text long and low, leaching every last drop of pungency and savor from the carcass, end quote, and added that it, quote, resonates with the ancient power of a ritual, end quote. Clarice Lockery of The Independent found Coen's symbolism to be, quote, a literal manifestation of the avian imagery of Shakespeare summoned in his play, a hallmark of the films he made with his brother Ethan, each of them rich puzzle box films that use every element of composition and mood to whisper their true meaning to their audience, end quote. Richard Roper from the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4, calling it, quote, one of the most visually striking and leanest versions of the Scottish play ever put on film, with blockbuster performances from Oscar winners Frances McDormand and Denzel Washington as Lady and Lord Macbeth, and a brilliant supporting cast, end quote. One more thing. Richard Brody of The New Yorker gave the film a generally negative review, stating that, quote, Coen's straining for seriousness and yearning for importance breaks through to the other side with the howlers of unintentional comedy. Coen's stripped-down adaptation sets out to normalize Shakespearean language, but he ends up going too far, end quote. I disagree. Accolades. It's one of those films that already has a whole other page for accolades. That's a lot. So at the Academy Awards, those were actually announced last week, so I have those ready. The Academy Awards, it is nominated for Best Actor, Denzel Washington, Best Production Design by Stefan Deschamps and Nancy Haig, and Best Cinematography by Bruno De Bonnell. At the American Film Institute Awards, it was added to the top 10 films of 2021. What else? At the BAFTAs, it is nominated for Best Cinematography. Critics' Choice Awards, it is nominated for Best Actor, Denzel, and Best Cinematography as well. Golden Globes, it is nominated... was nominated for Best Actor, Motion Picture Drama for Denzel. I forgot the Globes already happened. I completely forgot they existed, and then saw on Twitter that they were happening, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they basically got canceled, but they're still happening. The National Board of Review added it to their top 10 films list, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Outstanding Achievement in Cinematography. Satellite Awards, it is nominated for Best Actor, Motion Picture for Denzel, Best Adapted Screenplay for Joel Coen, Best Cinematography, and Best Art Direction and Production Design. At the SAG Awards, it is nominated for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Leading Role for Denzel. And that's all the like major awards, I believe. Yeah. So now to my opinions. I like that it's stripped down. I think, going off of what I said earlier about that app that I don't know the name of, so if anyone knows the name of it, please tell me. Seeing Shakespeare stripped down like that is very pleasing to me. I enjoy it, even though I was still very confused by the language. It was easier to understand what was happening visually. The cinematography is some of the best cinematography I've ever seen. It is not the best. I'm not going to tell you what the best is. I mean, if you want to know, you can go check out my Letterboxd at Luckiest Peach, but I'm going to end up going over that next week, so that's why I'm not going to tell you today. So, it is some of the best cinematography I have ever seen. The thing that gets me is I don't understand why it's nominated for Best Production Design at the Academy Awards. Maybe because it's so barren and sparse. They're just like, oh, that's good, they all made it work. But it's not stellar production design. There are other films that came out last year that were not nominated that had better production design. It's good production design. It's not bad, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's Oscar worthy. To me, the most Oscar worthy things to me are the cinematography and Denzel Washington. But regardless, I loved this movie. I think an issue with a lot of Shakespeare films is it's hard to get the emotional feeling. Plays. It's hard to get the emotional feeling because you're so caught up trying to understand the language. At least I am. And because this is so broken down and presented in, I guess, a basic way. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just presented very basic, very standard, stripped down, That makes it easier to get that emotional impact. So this movie was scary. It was scary. I didn't know, like, that I knew this was a tragedy, obviously. I didn't know that this was a thriller. I didn't know that this was supposed to be a scary thing, and I'm sure most of Shakespeare's tragedies, if you look at them stripped down, they're supposed to be scary. But for the last, I don't know, how old was I? Was 17. For the last, like, 6 years, I didn't understand that this was supposed to be, like scary and thrilling until today. This movie was terrifying. I was shaking in my boots at the end of it, primarily because of the music. The music is, the score is, when a score alone can make you scared and it complements the rest of the film to give you that visceral reaction. Oh, and I'm not talking about like horror movies, like actual horror movies where they add the low vibrancy, the low frequencies that you can't hear, but they instill that fear out in you. I'm not talking about that because that's a cop out. I'm talking about like music that actually has that fear instilled in it. Oh, it's so good. Well, I was talking about Ethan Coen. He did a review of it. Is it, what is, this isn't the, oh, this is the negative review. This is not the one I want. Get away. I don't want to, I disagree with that guy who said he went too far. He did not go far at all. Ethan Coen Macbeth review. I'm not reading that one. Where was it? Lord. He wrote a review of it to troll. No, not that one. He wrote a review to troll his brother, and I thought it was funny. And I cannot remember which publication it was on. Okay, no. Bear with me. I should have found this before I recorded, but I just was not thinking. New York Times? No. Roger Ebert? No. RogerEbert.com gave it a good review. Thank you for that. Oh, go back. Jesus Christ. Here we go. So. Oh, he's on I Might Be Wrong. They are a different kind of thing. So this is Joel Coen's Tragedy of Macbeth, reviewed by Ethan Coen. Oh, this is really long. Let me find. He calls him a fucking moron. That's a quote, direct quote. These are only direct quotes that I'm saying. He calls him a fucking moron. He says, quote, Macbeth is Joel Coen's shittiest movie by several billion light years. If all the elephants in all the world crapped into the same canyon for 100 years, you would still not have a pile of shit half as large as Joel Coen's dumbass dog dick rendering of this classic tale. One can't watch Macbeth without getting the sense that something is missing, some inspired element that gave Mr. Coen's earlier work an aura of ebullient genius is absent this time. He's referring to himself. The wit, verve, and undeniable rugged machismo that characterize the other 18 films in which he happened to be involved are nowhere to be found here. Ultimately, one must conclude that what's lacking is talent itself. Oh my lord. I haven't actually read the whole thing. I've only seen quotes. I'm gonna keep going. Consider the very decision to adapt Macbeth. The choice belies deep insecurity. Mr. Coen seems on some level to understand that he has the talent God gave a balloon full of piss. And on some level to understand that he has the talent God and therefore needs to latch onto more talented artists like a lamprey sucking the life out of a majestic blue whale. A less insecure director might have been satisfied with the less esteemed piece of intellectual property, but Mr. Coen glommed onto perhaps the best-known play by the world's most renowned playwright in a move that screams, "Help, the no-talent police are right around the corner. Please, someone rescue me before I'm exposed as a fraud who somehow fell ass first into a movie career." Oh God! If the decision to take on Macbeth suggests that Mr. Coen is a sad wannabe flailing for credibility, the choice to film in black and white proves the case beyond any reasonable doubt. In a move that would get you kicked out of Film 101 at the DeVry University Institute of Mediocrity, Mr. Coen renders The Bard's Tale in black and white using a 4:3 aspect ratio, as if that alone makes you Akira fucking Kurosawa. Though black and white can occasionally be an inspired choice, 2001's The Man Who Wasn't There comes to mind. The only way in which this gambit might have been anything other than a desperately pretentious ploy is that it's possible that Mr. Coen was simply too dumb to know that color film exists. Or perhaps he thought, Shakespeare's old, black and white is old, I'll film in black and white just like they did back in Shakespeare's times. Then he calls him a fucking moron. I'm gonna just read the whole thing. Mr. Coen's obvious hackery drags the actors down. Denzel Washington delivers a fiery performance, but it's worth noting that Mr. Washington makes fun of Joel behind his back and says that he walks funny. One would think that Frances McDormand might deliver the performance of a lifetime, considering that she, much like Lady Macbeth, is married to a deceitful loser who can only get ahead by cheating. Joel Coen. And yet, McDormand is far from her best. She's been excellent before. She was great in Fargo, outstanding in that one where she shits in a bucket. That one where she shits in a bucket. And brilliant last Thanksgiving when we were playing Cranium, and she and I got the star performer ones like immediately. One can only assume that she was dragged down by the oppressive weight of being married to a man whom all the kids used to call Soggy Bottom Joel because of the time he got diarrhea on the monkey bars. If one looks closely, signs that this abomination was coming from Mr. Coen were there. Few hints can be found in his film work. Some benevolent force was clearly papering over his incompetence, but anyone familiar with Mr. Coen's long-established patterns of behavior could see that this was due. The Tragedy of Macbeth is the work of a fraud and a narcissist, a man who deceives others to serve his own needs. These habits don't emerge fully formed in adults. They can be found in childhood, early childhood. For example, September 1963, when I happened to know that Mr. Coen borrowed a light bright that a family member had just gotten for his birthday and then fucking broke it and blamed it on the dog, and he didn't even get in trouble for it. Consider what total bullshit that is. This family member had just gotten that light bright, and I don't mean just got a month ago or just got last week. I mean literally just got earlier that day. The unnamed family member hadn't even really gotten to play with it yet. He'd done one pattern during the day in the kitchen where it's sunny, which barely even counts. He let Joel borrow the light bright, even though Joel never let him borrow his Frank Gifford electric football game because Joel is a mean jerk. Then Joel broke the fucking light bright and blamed it on Mandy, as if a King Charles Spaniel can put a hole in a light bright exactly the size and shape of a human foot. Besides, I fucking heard you jump off the top bunk and go ow, and then you limped around all day like a total dork. I can't believe Mom and Dad bought your story, although I guess I actually can because you're a little Mr. Perfect who always gets his way. In summary, Joel Coen's The Tragedy of Macbeth is a bowl full of lizard jizz from history's greatest sociopath. One wonders if a UN resolution calling for the phrase art house hack to be forcibly tattooed on Mr. Coen's forehead might be called for. Joel Coen has so thoroughly put his foot through his piece of art that it's literally more of a piece of fart, but this time he can't blame his fuck up on the dog. His rating was half a smashed light bright out of 5. And then at the end he says, for the lawyers, this was a bit. Ethan Coen had nothing to do with it. This is the best article I've ever read. This is better than that Variety article about Channing Tatum that Brad and I read last week on the Nerdcore live show, which is also worth reading. Obviously, this article isn't serious. He's just fucking with his brother, but That is the Tragedy of Macbeth. I like that it's stripped down because I kind of agree with the part, not agree with why, because he's dissing his brother, but I agree with what he said about people doing Shakespeare as an art hack. Because unless you give something original to it, there's nothing interesting about adapting Shakespeare. I'm sorry. You look like an art hack. You look like a sellout. Like you're just like, I need to make something. I need to make some money. I'll do Shakespeare. It's free. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say free press. Oh, it's free domain, open domain, whatever the term is. That's what Shakespeare looks like to me in film. So, like, if you do your own, like, different adaptation of it, like this, or like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. What's the other one? Throne of Blood. Who directed that? Throne of Blood by Kurosawa, which is his version of Macbeth. When it's an original version of a Shakespeare, that stands out. If it's just a straightforward adaptation, it's boring. So that's why I like this. It's not my favorite. My favorite of these is going to continue to be Romeo and Juliet, because I have a lot of personal significance attached to that film. I think it might have been like in the early episodes, in the videos, you can probably see my poster in the background. I've had that poster for almost 10 years. I have a lot of sentimental value attached to it because of the story of how I got it, and besides that, I love Baz Luhrmann. I think I've addressed that before in the Strictly Ballroom episode. I fucking love Baz Luhrmann. But either way, I like this film a lot. I recommend it. As somebody who's not a big fan of Shakespeare, I recommend it. I gave it 4.5 peaches out of 5. And my Letterboxd review reads, I don't pretend to understand Shakespeare's dialect, but this shit was scary. Fucking Denzel, man. Best actor of all time. Don't feel like reading Letterboxd reviews, but I'm going to. So, a 5-star review from Liam. There are no pronouns, but it reads, there'll never be a better depiction of witches in cinema than this. There's just no way it can be topped. Truly a masterpiece in every way. Let me see if I can find a bad review. Okay. Oh, that one's way too long. That one was too long. Okay. This one is 1 star from Eddie Mara. No pronouns. It reads, I'm going to be honest real quick and start pretending like I actually understand even a sliver of the plot or any of the conversations. Of course, nobody does. Most of them were monologues anyways that took place throughout this movie. Funny enough, even the subtitles didn't help me one bit. That's not a reason to diss on the movie. Don't dunk on the movie. Go dunk on Shakespeare. That's his fault. This one from Allison reads, it's 1 star. Something wicked this way comes, boring. The contortionist was interesting, but evoked Gollum too much. The framing was excellent, as were the actors. I recalled halfway through the movie that I had seen Denzel in a stage production of Julius Caesar in 2005, where he played Brutus. That's amazing. He's into Shakespeare, and he acted the hell out of both roles. A lot of actors are into Shakespeare. That's how they got their start. You'd be surprised how many actors got their start. Well, actually, you shouldn't be surprised by how many actors got their start in Shakespeare. Because to be honest, Shakespeare is probably the easiest way into the theater industry. Because Olympus knows how many productions of Shakespeare there are in a single year. Anyways, Macbeth's crown was gorgeous, but it didn't go around his head the whole way and was bound by a flimsy wire in the back that cheapened an otherwise beautiful costume piece. Ultimately, nothing could overcome the boredom. It felt like Oscar bait in the worst way. That's not the worst Oscar bait that came out last year. I can name one, directed by a certain director named Adam McKay, who only makes Oscar bait. because he makes it look, he's like, oh, this movie's so woke, it's gonna win Oscars. Anyways, I was so relieved that the runtime was under 2 hours. Director Joel Coen ventured out on his own. I have to say I like his work better with his brother, Ethan Coen, better. Maybe they balance each other out. This was just actors spouting words, and it mainly felt meaningless. That's also what Shakespeare is. Tragedy is a double entendre for referring to both the type of story and how the film was executed. Vegan alert. Oh my god. Vegan alert. Potion made with bats and goats. Horseback riding. References smashing child, and later we see a child's dismembered figures. People are killed by the sword. Vegan points, kind words toward a horse. I wish your horse is swift and sure-foot. Black and I was like, okay, I can understand what you're saying until I got to the vegan alert. And I was like, get fucked. That review does not deserve any attention. And I regret that I am retracting that I read that a review right now. Y'all did not hear it, okay? Okay, y'all did not hear that I read that review. You got that? Anyways, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. My name is Rachel. You can find me everywhere at Lucky Peach, LVCKY Peach. Of course, website coming soon. In the description of the episode, you can find a link tree that will take you to my Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, the YouTube, the Patreon, patreon.com/LuckyPeach, the stickers. Did I say Letterboxd? I probably did. It'll also take you to the podcast itself. I always miss something. The stickers, of course, are at Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/the Luckiest Peach. And of course, thank you to my patrons at patreon.com/LuckyPeach. Thank you for listening. Again, I apologize for slacking this month. Burnout is a bitch. So here's the deal. I have lost momentum on the drunk commentaries. I don't want to get too personal. I don't want to get into it. It's a whole thing. I really don't. I had a mental breakdown over it the other day. So, unfortunately, it hurts to do this because I know those are the episodes that get the most views or listens. And that was the first episode idea I had when I planned the podcast. But because it is causing me so much distress, I am discontinuing the drunk commentaries. And for now, unless I come up with a better topic idea, this idea was made by Raul, who has not been on an episode in a while, but he will be very soon. And by very soon, I mean in like 3 weeks. Raul had this idea of reviewing films that are in my personal collection, and by my personal collection, I mean like my physical Blu-ray collection. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna just go with my standard DVD Blu-rays because that's just any movie. I think I might just keep it to like my special ones, like my Steelbooks and like the Arrow and Criterion's. I'll stick to that, or like the like the special edition releases from independent distributors. So I'm gonna do that. So that being said, next week is no longer going to be the drunk commentary of Sorry to Bother You. I am going to be reviewing Satin Tango by Bellatar. It obviously does not fit the theme, but it is a film in my physical collection that I watched most recently and that I feel comfortable reviewing because I watched it so recently. So that will be next week's episode. I have not come up with a like permanent title for those episodes. Like how I have like Streaming Wars, Calls of the Month. So if you have any ideas for that, go ahead. I would love one of those kinds of titles to go with it. It bothers me that I still do not have one for the monthly reviews because I just call them monthly reviews. But yeah, So thank you for listening. I apologize if you really enjoyed the drunk commentaries. Life happens, and I cannot continue them mentally. I cannot function with them anymore. I cannot keep up with them. So yeah, I will see you next week for my review of Satin Tango. I chose Satin Tango on top of like the fact that I just watched it. I also chose it because I'm like, this seems like a good movie to start the change off with, because just saying Satin Tango turns heads because it's a 7-hour movie. But so I will see you next week for the review of Satin Tango. Thank you for understanding that I had to change it. I really don't feel like getting into why. If you have any questions, though, you can reach me, obviously, at Lucky Peach on Twitter is the best, but also the email for the podcast is luckiestpeachpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach me there if you have any questions or suggestions or ideas. I'm very open to them. Also, the stickers, I said the website, but they are also in the description. The things in the description of the episodes are the link tree, the patreon.com/luckypeach, which has multiple perks, including early release episodes. And then there's a link to the stickers and a link to the Discord for the podcast. That is the thing on the link tree that I forgot, but it's in the description anyways, but it's just on the link tree for, there's options. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. See you next week. Stay peachy.